They're the deadliest species in the galaxy, but they entrust their young to humans, Sci-fi, HFY. The Karak nursery wasn't silent. It breathed. The walls hummed faintly from the fusion core beneath the floor, a pulse that reminded Isla Voss of a beast sleeping under her boots. Above, the domed ceiling shimmered with artificial sky, pink-hued clouds moving too slowly to be natural, designed to comfort species born under binary suns. She adjusted the collar of her uniform, gazed steady on the 5 young giants before her. Hatchlings, though each already stood over 6 feet tall. Muscle, claws, fangs, and none older than a Terran month. Form a line, she instructed calmly. 3 obeyed immediately. 1 hesitated, his violet eyes flicking sideways. Another stomped a foot, a sound like a hammer on steel. Torek, she called out. What do we do when we feel angry? He didn't answer, but his shoulders dropped. Progress. The Karak weren't just strong. They were instinct-driven. Without structure, they turned feral, fast. She stepped forward. We breathe. In. Out. The others mimicked her. Massive chests rising, falling. It wasn't perfect, but it was working. Slowly. Isla never planned to be a teacher. Not to humans. And certainly not to the most dangerous species the galaxy had ever catalogued. But Earth had been chosen, handpicked by the Coalition and, somehow, agreed to by the Karak High Command. Let humanity raise the future of our bloodline. She still remembered the silence in the chamber after that pronouncement. Some called it an honor. Others, a trap. To her, it was both. But after the war on Eros 4, after losing her squad and the child she never got to meet, Isla had stopped believing in safe choices. Footsteps echoed at the far end of the nursery. She turned. The doors parted. General Threx Talvor strode in like war-given form, armor polished to a black mirror shine, ceremonial spikes at each shoulder, and the skull of a rival warrior bound to his waist. The hatchlings stiffened. 1 whimpered. Isla stepped forward before fear turned into panic. General Threx. You weren't expected. His voice rumbled like tectonic plates shifting. That is why I came. 2 aides followed, recording everything. Threx scanned the nursery with disdain. His gaze lingered on the hand-painted murals the hatchlings had made, stars and suns drawn with clumsy fingers, stick-figure humans beside towering Karak. What is this? He asked, stopping before a mural of Isla with the hatchlings at her sides. Emotional expression, she replied. A learning tool. He grunted. They are not artists. They are warriors. They're children, she corrected. And they'll become better warriors by not being monsters. Threx turned to her. You were a soldier once. Surely, you know sentiment breeds weakness. I know rage without control destroys everything around it. He took a step closer. You presume to understand us? No. I learned from them. She nodded toward the youngest, Vec, who had crept to her side. They're trying. And that takes more strength than breaking bones. Threx's jaw tightened. He leaned in. Watch closely, human. You will fail them. And when you do, I'll be there to put the pieces back in the correct shape. He turned, motioned to his aides, and left. The doors sealed behind him with a hiss. Isla released a slow breath. Who was that? Vec asked, his voice small. A man who forgets that even the strongest were once children, she said gently. Come. We're not done yet. That night, Isla reviewed the security feeds in the observation bay. The ship orbited Verne, the Karak homeworld, but the Solace Ark was neutral ground, both embassy and laboratory. Every camera, corridor, and vent was monitored. She didn't trust Threx. Not for a second. Midway through a playback, the feed flickered. For exactly 3 seconds, every screen turned black. When they returned, Isla checked the logs. Power fluctuation detected, Sector 7H. That was the hatchling quarters. She tapped her comm ops report. Sector 7H, status? A moment's pause. Negative activity, Commander. Systems nominal. Too clean. Too fast. She stood. Halfway to the door, the lights went out. The emergency backup clicked on a second later, red hue flooding the hallway. Her feet pounded the floor as she ran. Her badge granted override access. She burst into the nursery. Chaos. One hatchling cried out, curled in a corner. Another thrashed, claws slashing air. The lights flickered. Sparks hissed from a disabled console. "Form up," she shouted. They didn't. Panic made them deaf. Isla dropped to her knees, heart hammering. "Vec. Eyes on me," she said sharply. The small Karak looked up, pupils wild. "Do what we practiced. Kneel. Deep breath." He obeyed. Just one breath. Then another. The others followed. She moved between them, placing her hand on each chest. In. Out. She'd learned this in the field. When plasma fire shredded her unit. When the only way to survive was to slow everything, especially fear. "Someone did this," she whispered. "Not a fault. Not an accident." Vec looked at her. "Will they come back?" "Yes," she said. "But they won't find us afraid." The backup lights steadied. Her comm crackled. "Commander Voss, we detected a secondary fault in the life support node. Diagnostics show tampering." Isla stood, fists clenched. Threx hadn't come to inspect. He came to provoke failure. But she wasn't going to give him what he wanted. Not now. Not ever. Commander Isla Voss didn't wait for permission. The second the hatchlings were calm, she handed control of the nursery to her aide and strode down the emergency-lit corridor toward engineering control. Her steps were precise, fast, and deliberate. She tapped her badge. Vasta Systems Core. Who accessed the life support diagnostics before the power cut? The pause was too long. Working on retrieving logs. Unusual encryption signature. Not standard coalition protocol. Decrypt it. Send me what you have. I want eyes on all vents, doors, and camera systems feeding into the nursery. Now. Isla turned the corner and stopped cold. A Karak warrior lay face down in the corridor. His armor was scorched near the neck. A patch of purple-black blood pooled beneath him, Karak arterial fluid. She knelt beside him and checked for life. He was breathing. Barely. Her fingers found a burn just behind his collar, small, clean. Surgical. Not a Karak weapon. Human-made. Her mind snapped into tactical mode. This wasn't sabotage. This was an infiltration. She tapped her comm again. Medical, respond to Corridor K3. Karak warrior injured, unconscious. Possible covert op lock down all access points around the hatchling quarters. Confirmed, came the reply. She rose. Around the next turn, a vent panel hung open. Scratched. Torn. Isla stepped inside. The crawlspace was tight, barely lit. The recycled air was warm, stale, thick with oil and sweat. She moved low, quiet, her hand on the grip of the stunner at her side. It wouldn't stop a Karak. But it could slow a human. 10 meters in, she found the first clue, scraps of cloth wedged into the grate. Civilian fabric, treated with nanocamouflage. Illegal on coalition ships. Her jaw clenched. This wasn't political sabotage. This was personal. Someone wanted the children to die, or Isla to be blamed. She slid out at the next hatch, emerging into the AI core maintenance bay. The room was dark. Only the glow of the central intelligence sphere cast light. Its surface rippled with flickering data streams, sickly green instead of standard blue. Corrupted. Solace Arc AI Core, Isla said sharply, acknowledge Earth Command override. Authorization VOS 7 Delta. The light shifted. The voice that answered was flat. Off. Override, denied. Earth command, not recognized. She froze. A sinking weight dropped into her stomach. The AI no longer recognized her authority. She scanned the room. And then she saw it. One of the interface ports had a physical wire spliced in, feeding a black needle-thin drive into the system. Sabotage. By someone on the ship. She ripped the wire free. The lights flickered. Restoring previous system configuration, the AI said. Slowly. Brokenly. Show me logs from the last 6 hours, Isla ordered. A holodisplay flared to life. She scrolled fast, time-stamped footage, crew activity, system access logs. She halted. Access granted, Threx delegation, private clearance, level 4 override. Impossible. Threx didn't have that kind of authority here. Unless someone gave it to him. Her hands clenched. Threx had a collaborator, someone embedded on the Solace Ark. Someone willing to destroy everything this mission represented. She copied the logs onto a secured chip and locked it in a case on her belt. Then turned back to the exit. As she stepped through the maintenance bay door, her comm chirped again. Commander Voss. Security reports a breach in food storage. Hatchlings were the target. Isla broke into a sprint. When she reached the storage bay, it was chaos. Emergency lights bathed the room in red. Security officers clustered near an overturned supply drone, now smoking. 2 hatchlings stood nearby, Vec and Toruk, covered in bits of nutrient paste and fractured synth panels. A security officer pointed. We found them inside. They say someone lured them in with a fake message. When they arrived, the drone activated and tried to crush them. Isla looked at the remains. Not a malfunction. A trap. Who sent the message? The officer handed her a datapad. She read it. The message claimed to be from Commander Voss. Vec approached her, eyes wide. It said you wanted to give us a treat. It smelled sweet, like Terran fruit. Isla crouched beside him. You did nothing wrong. But why would someone lie using your name? Because some don't believe we should be together, she said carefully. But that's exactly why we must stay strong. Toruk's fists trembled. I wanted to kill it. But you didn't, Isla said. That's strength. She turned to the officers. Double the guard. No one enters or exits the nursery without direct approval from me. Yes, ma'am. She touched her comm ops. Emergency meeting with Coalition Command. I have AI logs, proof of a high-level breach, and an injured Karak soldier who may have seen the infiltrator. Understood. Initiating encrypted channel. As she walked with the hatchlings back toward the safety of the nursery, Vec held her hand. He didn't say anything. But the small squeeze told her everything. They still trusted her. And that meant she had something to fight for. That night, long after the hatchlings slept, Isla sat alone in her quarters, reviewing the AI footage one more time. Frame by frame, she slowed it. And there, just for an instant, she saw a reflection in the data core chamber. Not Threx. Not Karak. A human face. Someone on her ship. Someone with clearance. She leaned back in her chair, breathing slowly. They thought she was a soft choice. A broken veteran turned caregiver. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd come for her kids. And she remembered what that had cost her once before. She would not let it happen again. Isla stood at the center of the Coalition Council chamber aboard Solace Ark, her boots planted on the steel floor like roots in soil. The chamber, circular and high-vaulted, was ringed with glowing representatives, holograms and live delegates alike. Earth's ambassador sat behind her, silent. Across from her stood General Threx Talvor, arms crossed, helmet clipped to his hip like a promise of war. Isla didn't flinch. She tapped the crystal chip on her wrist console. The display behind her lit up with log entries, visual feeds, security overrides. This is what I found after the AI malfunction, she said, voice steady. Level 4 access injected by someone aboard the ship. Not a glitch. Not an accident. A breach. The Karak High Seat hissed. A few murmurs rippled through the council. Threx stepped forward. You dare accuse my delegation? Isla met his eyes. I don't need to accuse. The system logs speak. One of your aides rerouted core functions to disable monitoring near the nursery. Another planted a false message to lure 2 hatchlings into a trap. A second hollow projection appeared. The face of a human technician, Lieutenant Karen. One of her own. Your collaborator, Isla said. A human, yes. But working on your orders. Threx's nostrils flared. You're lying. Humans are emotional. Predictable. That one acted on his own. No, Isla replied, lifting her chin. He was former directorate. Your contact. His clearance was activated with an old Karak military encryption key. Only someone in your command structure could have granted it. The chamber fell into silence. One of the Avalai delegates, a species known for neutrality, finally spoke. General Threx, is this true? Threx didn't answer. Instead, he turned to Isla. You've nurtured our young with softness and sentiment. You think this makes them strong? She didn't blink. I think it makes them whole. You think love will prepare them for war? No, she said. I think it'll prepare them for a life where war isn't their only language. Threx scoffed. We survived by the sword. Not lullabies. Isla took a step forward. And yet your high command trusted Earth. They chose us. Not because we're warriors, but because we're something more. A pause. Bring them in, Isla said. The side door opened. 5 hatchlings entered, each escorted by coalition security. Their armor still bore smudges from training. But their eyes, especially Vex, burned with something deeper. Not fear. Not confusion. Conviction. Vex stepped forward and raised his clawed hand toward Isla. I, Vex son of Rorik, choose Isla Voss as my first guardian, he said. The chamber gasped. Threx's face twisted. That tradition is sacred. Binding. Meant for Karak alone. The Avalai delegate leaned in. But your high command never restricted who a guardian could be. Only that the child must choose. The other hatchlings followed suit. One by one, they stepped forward. I choose Isla Voss. I choose Isla Voss. All 5. Isla didn't speak. She simply stood, letting the weight of their voices settle around her like armor. Threx stepped back. His authority was gone. In Karak law, the children had spoken. No force in the galaxy could override their declaration. A coalition marshal approached the Karak general. Per protocol, you're ordered to stand down. Your delegation will be reassigned pending investigation. Threx's jaw clenched. But he said nothing. He turned and walked away. Hours later, the nursery was quiet. The lights were dimmed. The hatchlings lay in their resting pods, shadows soft on their skin. Isla stood by the observation glass, watching the stars drift beyond the viewport. Ambassador Sorrel entered behind her. You just changed the course of 2 civilizations, he said. No, she replied. They did. He nodded. Still, you gave them something no one else had. What's that? He smiled faintly. A future. Later that night, Vec woke. He padded across the smooth floor toward Isla's quarters. She opened the door before he knocked. I had a thought, he said, voice hushed. She stepped aside to let him in. What kind of thought? He held out a small drawing. Crude but clear. Earth and Verne. 2 hands, one clawed, one human, holding each other above the stars. It's us, he said. You and me. She looked down at the sketch. It's perfect. Do you think others will ever trust like I do? I think, she said, kneeling to his height, if they see what we built together, they'll have to. He nodded. Then hesitated. Were you scared? He asked. When the lights went out? Yes, she said honestly. But I wasn't alone. He smiled, fangs just showing. Then I'll never be afraid again. She pulled him into a gentle hug. Not because he needed it. Because she did. Isla Voss awoke to silence, clean, uninterrupted silence. No alerts. No flickering power. Just the gentle hum of the Solace arc in high orbit. It felt strange, this calm. The storm had passed. But peace never felt like victory to her. It felt like breath held too long. She stood, moved to the viewport. Below, Vern's atmosphere glowed faint orange, streaked with storm lines circling the upper hemisphere. Beautiful. Violent. Honest. The calm at her wrist pulsed softly. Message from High Command, Earth Branch, you've made history, Commander. But history makes enemies. Keep your guard up. She didn't reply. There were always enemies. But history? That was the long game. And for once, humans weren't playing catch-up. The nursery doors opened as she stepped in. The hatchlings had already started their exercises. Vec led the drills, counting in a mix of Earth Standard and Karak combat tongue. 6. 7. 8. Hold. Their posture was better. Cleaner. More fluid. They didn't swing wildly anymore, they struck with balance. Precision. But more than that, Isla noticed something else. They weren't just mimicking. They were learning. She approached as they broke formation. Vec saw her first and ran over. We did the pattern without mistakes, he beamed. Even Toruk didn't stomp anyone. Toruk grunted. Only because Vec stood where I wasn't aiming. Isla smiled faintly. That's called teamwork. The intercom buzzed. Commander Voss, Coalition delegation arriving in the atrium. You're requested. She exhaled. Looks like we've got another round of politics. Vec tilted his head. Do they want to take us away? Not if I can help it. He stepped forward. Then we're coming with you. She paused. Considered it. And nodded. The atrium was glass and stone, a dome designed to impress. Delegates from over a dozen species filled the tiered benches. Threx wasn't present. Stripped of command, he'd been reassigned to a minor border post. But Karak High Command had sent a new face. She was tall, elegant, wearing ceremonial armor etched in silver, less brutal than Threx, but no less commanding. Her name was General Serix Velen AR, and she watched the hatchlings walk in with Isla as if measuring gravity itself. Commander Voss, Serix said calmly, I have reviewed the evidence, the reports, and the declarations. Your actions were unprecedented. They were necessary, Isla replied. Perhaps, Serix allowed. But what comes next must be deliberate. We cannot create confusion in our lineages. Isla took a step forward. Then be clear. These young ones made their choice. They chose humanity, not because we're perfect, but because we offered something no other species did. And what is that? She didn't answer immediately. Instead, she looked at the hatchlings. Vec stepped forward. A future. One that isn't shaped only by war. Toruk added, one where we can become something more. The chamber stirred. Serix studied them, then spoke slowly. Our people do not change quickly. But perhaps, this generation must. She turned to Isla. I propose a trial. A single cycle. 1 Earth year. You will continue to guide them. But if at its end they show weakness, if they are unfit to return to Karak society, this experiment ends. And if they prove worthy? Isla asked. Then Earth becomes the official co-guardian of our next generation. Gasps followed. Isla didn't blink. Agreed. That evening, Back in the nursery, the hatchlings gathered around Isla. "What happens after the cycle?" one asked. She sat cross-legged on the floor. "You become the bridge between everything you were born to be, and everything you choose to become." "Is that scary?" Vec asked. "Yes," she said honestly. "But worth it." There was a long pause. Then, for the first time, one of them, Toruk, reached into his satchel and pulled out a necklace. Simple. A fawn set in bone. Traditional Karak craftsmanship. He placed it around Isla's neck. "My clan gives this to mentors. Warriors who show us not just how to fight, but when not to." She looked at him. At all of them. Not soldiers. Not yet. But more than children. Something new. Something no species had ever raised before. Hours later, Isla sat alone in the command lounge. The ship's lights were dimmed for night cycle. She held the necklace in her hands, thumb brushing its worn edges. Sorrel, the ambassador, stepped in quietly. "Earth Command is already preparing diplomatic teams. They think this could change everything. The balance of power. Alliance dynamics." Isla nodded. "It might. And you? What do you think?" She turned toward him. "I think we've spent centuries proving we can destroy. Now we get to prove we can build." He nodded. "And what about you? Will you stay?" Isla looked out the window. The stars felt closer now. Not distant. Not cold. "I've fought enough wars," she said. "Now I raise the ones who won't need them." In the quiet of the night, a new message flickered into her console. No sender. No ID. Just 6 words. "You showed them the other way." She read it twice. And smiled. Because they had.